Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Better. So, as you might have already deduced from your time here at the fort, we, as the interpretive staff today in the summer, are portraying members of the Royal Regiment of Artillery, specifically the 3rd Battalion, and even more specifically, Captain William Borthwick's company, one of 6 companies of Royal Artillerymen that arrived in North America in 1776 into the campaign of 1777, and the one company after this place's successful capture from the American Army on July 6th is left here behind to stockpile and inventory everything here and to garrison and man this post. Now, the men of the Royal Artillery that are with Lieutenant John Burgoyne as he's going into this big invasion of 1777 to places like Ticonderoga, they are in charge of the largest train of Royal Artillery that North America has ever seen at that point in history. It's 72 bronze guns, 17 of which are light bronze 3-pounders like you see in front of you here today. Now you might be thinking to yourself, why did John Burgoyne need the largest train of artillery ever to set foot in North America? Well, 2 years ago, in 1775, in June, John Burgoyne found himself right outside Boston, and he was witnessing the Battle of Bunker Hill. And there he sees British soldiers rushing against fortified American posts and getting mowed down because they don't have any artillery support to break through those lines. A year later, he finds himself in October of 1776 here at Ticonderoga with the Governor General of Quebec, the Guy Carleton. He brings down a British army to try to take this post, and they find even more American fortified defenses, these big earthen and log walls with cannon and trench behind them. And they have to turn around and go back to Canada because they didn't bring enough artillery to knock these walls down. So by the winter of 1776, John Burgoyne has had it. He goes to personally meet with King George III of England to get at his disposal the entire army, the Royal Navy on the lake, and specifically that 72-gun train of artillery. And like I said, 17 of those bronze guns, all of them bronze, very high quality, would have been a light bronze 3-pounder like you see in front of you today. Specifically, this is a Verbruggen gun. What that means is that it was created in the Royal Brass Foundry in England by 2 master founders. They're actually Dutch guys. They're 2 brothers, Jan and Peter Verbruggen. And they have been spending the past few years in this Royal Brass Foundry perfecting the art of making guns and bronze cannons such as this. This light 3-pounder is ahead of the time. It's state-of-the-art. It is only merely 3 feet long. The artillery does extensive testing in the years prior, and they figure out that they can cut 6 inches out the muzzle, meaning that it's lighter and shorter, but still does the same exact job. On top of this, it weighs incredibly, just about 120 pounds after it's all streamlined and excess metal and bronze is taken off to the spots that don't need it, which means just 2 Royal Artillerymen can pick this gun up and physically move it to wherever they want to go if the situation demands it, because these guns are specifically contracted out and created to fight in theaters like North America, where you don't have nice, beautiful rolling fields and plains. You have this, the Adirondacks, a horrible place. Trees, hills, mountains, rocks, ponds, rivers, all things that are absolutely nasty stuff to drag a cannon through. So they make light Verbruggen guns, this 120-pound, 3-foot-long bronze tube. And on top of it specifically, the Verbruggen brothers get so good at making these guns, they make 73 of them in 1 year. And they get so good at it, they can make 20 of these guns in just 1 pour of bronze at the foundry. Now, specifically on the gun, as you work your way from the back to the front, on the back you'll find this very large bronze ball. It's called the cascabel. Its role is to help adjust the elevation of the gun, upwards and downwards, and also to help move it around in the bigger picture. It has to be dismounted or moved around by the gunners on the crew. As you work your way up past the cascabel, you notice on the breech, it's the thickest part, naturally where the explosion is taking place. You also find the vent, or a channel on which you can go from the surface of the breech into the bore itself, so of course you can successfully prime and actually fire this gun when it's exploding. And you'll see that the bronze, of course, tapers off, so it gets thinner as you go through the chase, following a series of reinforcements, or different sections of different thickness of bronze. And as you get about halfway up the tube, you you would find these two really bronze, large cylinders called trunnions. And they act, of course, as the pivot point, so you can move the gun up and down and adjust elevation. And on top of this, these pivot points, these trunnions, they're held in place by these very thick cast iron cap squares so they don't go anywhere when the gun's fired. And they're set off balance, which means when you fire the gun, it doesn't naturally want to fly off the carriage up and out because of the off-balance point. It means all of that recoil instead wants to go down and inwards into the earth, so there's as little as recoil as possible once this gun is successfully fired. And you'll notice once it tapers up to the muzzle flare, it's truly, really a tiny, little light gun, but that being said, it still has the same deadly effect as any other cannon that you'd find in this Royal Train of Artillery. Now, of course, as great as this Verbruchung gun is, being super light, super thin, being able to move it around wherever you want, and on top of this, it's made of bronze, a very high-quality cannon. You could look at its counterpart, maybe an iron gun, where after constant firing and fatigue after stress on those iron tubes, that iron actually tends to want to burst and crack after it gets to the end of its life. Of course, this can't be had because it could accidentally hurt or kill the crew around operating the piece. Now, if you look at bronze, it does the exact opposite. When bronze guns get very fatigued after firing over and over and over again, they don't explode and kill the crew. Instead, the muzzle simply depress and droop, that bronze physically melting, and that signals very safely the end of this gun's military career. Now, as great as that all is, a super light, super compact, thin, and efficient Verbruchung gun, it's just the tube without the carriage that goes along with it. In the carriage, this field carriage, which is iconic with these large spoked wheels, all of the cast iron plating to make sure it's durable, a wide axle and thick trunnions to ensure that you can easily maneuver it. These field carriages you would have seen maybe even 18 years ago in the 7 Years' War, but this one, just like the cannon, is refined. It's streamlined. A captain in the Royal Artillery, Captain William Congreve, is going to look at these field carriages, and he's going to take off all the excess hardwood and excess iron that can be removed to trim that down even more. So once again, the gun is as light and agile as possible for the terrain here in the campaign of 77. On top of this carriage is so well streamlined and cut down that it can actually be taken apart by the crew that's serving on it, and they can carry each an individual part of this carriage and move it physically wherever they want to go, then put it back together, and they're ready to fire. Now, as well as good as all this is, this streamlined, lightweight carriage and cannon, of course, to fire and operate this gun, we need a series of grades of ammunition. And this is also improved in the 1770s. Previously in archaic on past carriages, you could have seen these big shot lockers, or these big blocks on the gun itself that stores all of your ammunition. Very heavy, very cumbersome, and not very efficient. And it's refined. Instead now, they just have two small ammunition boxes to the left and to the right of the carriage that stay on when the gun's fired, so you don't have to run and go get the shot that you're firing. But they still have the capability of holding upwards to 60 rounds of ammunition. Now, one of the mainstays of these cannons is, of course, solid shot. They're these big iron balls that can be shot thousands and thousands of yards. And if you tell me, if this is a 3-pound bronze gun, how heavy do you think this ball is? 3 pounds, right? Exactly. Now, this 3-pound ball, as small as it is, can still be shot upwards to 2,000 yards in any direction. As small as a gun is this, and it would be used to knock down walls, destroy fortifications, maybe poke holes in ships. And this 3-pounder gun, it would fire this 3-pound solid shot for whatever it need be. Now, of course, as you decrease your range to the target, you could switch over to different types of ammunition. Maybe when you get under 1,000 yards, maybe under 700 yards, this crew, instead of using just solid shot, which by the way is fixed onto what's called a wad, or this wooden cylinder to ensure the snug fit, and also strapped on with iron, so everything's in one spot at the one time, so you don't have to go get separate parts. They can instead switch over to what's called case or canister shot, which is the same 3 pounds of weight of projectiles, but this time it's in a tin can, and instead of one ball, it's 42 small lead musket balls that can be shot out. Perhaps it's cut open before it's fired out of the breech, which means it expands into whatever you're shooting at, and it also could be intentionally shot into the ground a few yards in front of whoever you're shooting at. So this can will burst open and scatter those projectiles through an entire company front. And at its height, this can create a firing arc 30 yards wide by 9 feet tall to decimate dozens and dozens of men that you're shooting at as far away as 750 yards downrange, turning this tiny gun into a massive shotgun. And this as well has that wooden cylinder, that wad, to ensure that nice, compact, snug fit so you can get the most bang for your buck. Now, you might have noticed something, that the solid shot, the big shot, and also the canister, they all have those wads and the shot themselves, but they are missing the very important powder, the charge propelled out of the gun. This is improved as well. Firstly, that box that is going to contain all of the charge, it is moved from the trail of the gun about 10 yards behind the carriage itself, so it's not physically on the piece, which could be very dangerous in the heat of an action. It's put safely behind the gun itself, and on top of that, the way that they're using this powder is refined as well. Now, in the period, there's a pretty standard ratio for how much powder you need to propel how much weight ball you have. It's a 1/3 ratio. So you tell me, if I am trying to shoot a 3-pound iron ball, how much powder do I need? 1 pound, exactly. A bunch of math majors in the crowd. So we have this 1-pound bag of powder, and even this is refined. Instead of just using 1 pound all the time in various ranges, which can be wasteful and using too much explosive, they instead cut it up into sections where they have 6-ounce charges, 8-ounce charges, 10-ounce charges, and of course those 16-ounce charges, of course. So depending on how far away to your target, you can choose a different amount of powder, so you can use the most or least powder the most efficiently and still get the same deadly effect downrange by simply just adjusting the elevation of the gun itself. Now, as great as all this is combined, the efficient streamlined cannon, the state-of-the-art carriage, the new way of measuring and grading powder, it is all useless without a crew to properly man this cannon. And the men of the Royal Regiment of Artillery, they are some of the most well-trained cannon crewmen in the entire civilized world by the 1770s. These men, when you sign up to join the Regiment of Artillery, you have to go to college, essentially. You go to the Royal Artillery Academy, Woolwich, England, for 3 or 4 years. Well, you learn everything that you need to know, how to successfully load and operate any cannon, any mortar, any howitzer, learning things such as calculus, trigonometry, algebra, so you can effectively make that perfect shot happen regardless of whatever situation you find yourself in. And these men would be practicing for hundreds and even thousands of hours at this academy in England. And each one of these men would be so well trained as to independently operate any role that they need to do on this gun, regardless of whatever gun they find themselves on. Now, that being said, of course, we need specific implements to go about the loading and fire of this piece itself. However, each one of these men have common and universal tools at their disposal. You notice that each one of them has their carbine, or their firelock, slung over the left shoulder of their body, so they can use it to maybe do mundane tasks of military service, like pulling guard or guarding a magazine, or maybe more significantly, using it to defend the piece itself at close quarters just for the muzzle of their firelock alone. To go with this, they have on their right hip their cartridge box, which of course houses all the ammunition for that carbine, and to the left, their sidearm, or the bayonet that goes along with it as well. On top of that, you'll notice a lot of these men are wearing men's harnesses, these big leather straps with these 13-foot long, large stick ropes adorned with these big cast iron hooks that they can use to attach this carriage to help move it along if they need to in adverse situations. Now, on top of these universal tools, of course, each one of these gunners has unique implements to do each role on the gun. On the front right of the muzzle, you would have found the man with the sponge. It's just a large hardwood polearm. On one end, you would have found a wolf sheep skin with a fleece still attached to it. And this is continuously doused in water and acts quite literally as a sponge. It's inserted into the muzzle, put all the way to the breech, turned around, and that wet sponge is going to douse and extinguish any embers or remains that would be in the breech still that could cause this gun to accidentally go off at the worst possible moment. Also, at the other end of this implement, he has an oak rammer head, and this, of course, is used to propel that charge, wad, and shot from the muzzle all the way to the breech very snugly to ensure that this gun can be successfully primed in order for it to be fired. Working in concert with him, on the other side of the muzzle, the left-hand side, you would have found the man with the wad. He has this large cast iron double corkscrew, the wad hook, and it's used to be propelled to the breech of the gun, twisted around, and this one, instead of dousing it with water, instead extracts any physical remains of maybe old flannel bag log into the breech, and he uses the wad hook to extract it, so the gun can yet again safely be fired over and over and over. He also has at the other end of this implement, he has yet another large oak rammer. So in the event of something happening to the gunner on the front right, or just the necessity of needing it, they can ram that charge down to the breech once again to ensure that we can consistently get shots down range. Now, towards the back of the gun, the breech on the back right, you would have found the bombardier. He, at his disposal, has certain implements strapped on his physical accoutrement, one of which is a large brass prick, and this is used to puncture that hole from the surface of the vent all the way to the breech in the bore, so you can prime the piece with powder, so you can successfully ignite the gun. He also has a brass hammer at his disposal, which most importantly can be used in tandem with a series of spikes that he carries in his bag to spike the gun with an iron or brass spike. Then that can be put in the vent, slammed into place with that hammer, so no one can use this gun in the event of whatever situation where the crew would have to abandon the piece and retreat without the cannon itself. He also has on his chest a large tin tube box. This would have inside it 100 tin quills, these very tiny tin funnels that are sharpened on one end. So in the event of a quick firing, you can just take that pre-packaged tin quill with powder and just slam it into the vent. It automatically punctures into that charge, and you can fire that much quicker in the event of a hot action. Now, on top of him, working in the back right, you would have found another gunner, and he has maybe archaically a lid stock, or this very tiny implement with slow match wrapped around it, with chemically treated rope designed to burn very slowly yet very consistently. But by the very modern decade of the 1770s, he has at his disposal the upgrade of this, what's called a portray, and it is very akin to a modern-day road flip. It's a mixture of chemicals and a batch inside a paper cylinder. It is designed to burn very slowly, very hot, but this time incredibly consistently, so we can fire this gun in whatever situation or whatever weather or terrain we come across. Now, on top of this, you would have found another gunner at the back of the piece, maybe such as myself, the superintendent of the gun, that would work with maybe the traversing hand strike, or the large lever on the back of the trail, so you can lift the piece up and down and also move it from left to right, and maybe also aim the piece as well after each firing, using just simply the thumbnails on your hands to make a rudimentary crosshair, and use degree markers on that elevation screw beneath the breech, and as well with more marks on both the muzzle and the breech, so you can make that perfect shot happen after the gun's placement is displayed after it's fired. On top of this, with the main gunners of the piece, you would have found a series of matrosses, or men who are in charge of moving the piece around. One of them specifically has at his disposal a large black leather haversack, inside the capacity of carrying 3 rounds of ammunition. And his job is to always ferry rounds of ammo from the box behind the gun to the muzzle to that gunner on the front left, so that we can consistently have ammunition to feed into the gun and we shoot down. And you would have seen more matrosses as well to help out the crew such as this. Even as small of a gun as this may be operated in the worst dire straits by only 3 men, at most maybe an entire crew of 11, so you can consistently move it wherever you want to go. And these men of the Royal Artillery would be trained in the Woolwich Academy for those few odd years, for hundreds and thousands, even thousands of hours. And there they would practice the loading procedure, going step by step by step, following manual exercises and treatises. So each one of these men knows exactly what to do at the exact right instant. So in the heat of an action, they don't have to go through every step and step and step of the loading procedure broken down one by one. At this point, they're so well trained that to go about automatically loading and firing this gun, they just need one simple order. That order just simply being to load. And with these crew will go through their unique rules. The man with the sponge dousing the breech to ensure there's nothing alike below. As soon as that happens, a matron feeding up to the front left man with a water hook, that charge is rammed to the breech snugly by the man to the right. And then as soon as that's assured, the bombardier in the back right is going to use that pick to create that channel between the surface and the breech. As soon as that's done, putting one of those quills inside. As soon as that happens, the gunner on the front right instinctively knows the sound of firing of the gun, as easy as that. Fire! The gun can go up. As simple as that. These men are so well trained that they can go through this loading procedure, doing all these steps in maybe 15 or 10 seconds at max. 6 shots a minute with as tiny as guns to just into this light. And these men are also so incredibly well trained that they not only know how to do them all this knowledge themselves, they can go out and draft men from different groups, maybe from the 53rd Regiment, 62nd, or maybe German or Brunswick troops that are with the Army, and they can bring them in and teach them and give them their knowledge so even more men can bolster the ranks of the artillery to operate these 72 guns and all the other ones that they capture at the successful taking of Ticonderoga. And these men keep doing it over and over again with just that one simple order, load! And they go through this process over and over, being so well trained to instinctively do all by muscle memory, being so well disciplined that they can do it in that 15-second time that weren't being used to remove any of that fouling, automatically sponge, charging that round with the breech of the hammer, puncturing that with the brass pick, and as soon as it's primed comes again with one of those wheels, it could be fired again, over and over, maybe expending all 60 rounds of ammunition that they have downrange, maybe even being fed more if the situation demands. Fire! And they can continually do this for maybe minutes, maybe hours, for maybe days without rest, like here at Ticonderoga, where the sole purpose of these men entrenched here at a citadel that is the fort are successfully removed by the 72 guns that the Royal Artillery brings here, takes the Americans out of the post by using knowledge and training such as this, and eventually are going to follow them over 60 miles to the south for the rest of the campaign. And a lot of these men will eventually see action at places like the field of Saratoga, the finale of the entire push into the south, places like all. Now, before I let you go, you have options.